Hi. Yep, cool, it's on. I didn't realize I was sitting down. So, yeah, we're here to ask these intelligent people some hard-hitting DevOps-related questions, covering the range of the multi-cloud environments, automation, CI/CD, DevOps strategy, and some emerging challenges. So I'm going to ask them a few questions that I have obviously pre-prepared, and then at the end we're going to have a 10-minute Q&A with you fine people if you have any questions you wish to ask at the end. And sure, this is my introduction. So let's start with a nice broad question of how do you tackle the various multi-cloud risks and challenges that you see in your environment?
Well, maybe I can just take that one?
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Graeme, and hello, everybody. My name is Lorena, and I head technology risk for SC Ventures. And SC Ventures is actually the innovation arm of Standard Chartered Bank. And DevOps topic is a topic that is quite close to my heart because in Standard Chartered Ventures, we develop and build fintechs and startups directly in the cloud, all native cloud applications on DevOps. And that's one reason, and the other reason is because I started my career as a software engineer, and I did the development and software delivery for over 10 years, so I really feel the complexities of DevOps. Back to Graeme's question. It's actually a broad question, Graeme.
Of course.
Multi-cloud environment challenges. I was just thinking about it this morning, right? In Standard Chartered Ventures, I was telling you we develop and build fintechs in the cloud. Basically, we are using the three hyperscalers, yeah? Amazon, Microsoft Azure, Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. And I already have challenges with just one cloud environment, let alone if we speak about multi-cloud environment, right? But I guess that's the fun part. If I'm to get to the answer, there are many challenges. I will just share with you 3 of them, yeah, based on my experience. First of all, I would like to highlight the complexity of the landscape, right? I was telling you about these 3 hyperscalers, but that's not only it. At least there are already out there more than 20 top cloud service providers offering cloud services, right? So how do we choose from? And these 20, in Asia, we have the Alibaba, the Tencents, and others, and also if you think about it, every technology company today has a cloud. The IBMs, the Salesforce, the Dell Technologies. So it's difficult to choose which cloud are you going to be using. And that is going to be specific to your business and to your constraints, the constraints and requirements of your organization. So again, there is no one cloud and one approach fits all. And that's the complexity. And obviously, managing the cloud infrastructure and operations across multi-cloud environments, exponentially the challenges grow. So that is one, the complexity of the landscape and the complexity of managing that infrastructure and operations across. The other one is cloud service providers' offerings. Each of these cloud service providers are offering more than 100 services. Who can keep up with everything, right? Like in my case, I can share, I'm certified for AWS and Azure. I understand both clouds. I cannot tell you that I'm on top of every single services of both clouds, right? And let alone if we need to learn as well about Google and the other 20 that I was telling you before. So there's definitely a complexity, and we must tackle it with the right digital talent programs, with the right upskilling and reskilling programs to help our people, because we keep saying technology is moving fast, but it's our people moving at the same speed. Tough, right? It's really tough for us. We don't have AI in our brains yet, maybe someday. So, and the last challenge, and I will wrap it up, is the vendor lock-in, right? So obviously we all start with one cloud, right? Usually we don't just start with multi-cloud environments. And you want to make sure that you don't get yourself locked in with that cloud service provider, because you need to think of the future and things may happen. And in ventures, I've seen it already. We have to move from AWS to Google for several reasons. Sometimes, again, it depends on the use case scenario, right? If you are thinking of running AI or machine learning big workloads, you might want to choose Google Cloud because the offerings are much more suitable. And like this, right? So you need to protect yourself contractually first, having the right termination clauses, having the right exit strategies, and having the right exit plans. So tomorrow you don't get locked in those vendor lock-in periods. And the last thing I would say is, so apart from all of this, make sure that when you are building, right, all the services and all the tools are cloud agnostic, because otherwise you will have problems again when you're trying to migrate from one CSP to another. And I'll leave it there. There are many more, but I want to give the opportunity to the experts panelist.
Anyone else like to add something? Senthil?
Yeah. So we need to start seeing cloud as just a target for deploying a workload. And as much as we can, we should abstract complexity for engineers to start worrying about where are they deploying stuff. We used to deploy an on-prem, and now we've got a new destination cloud. That's about it. You just still need to engineer and deploy stuff. So basically, from a DevOps perspective, you should keep your pipelines quite standardized and abstracted as much as you can. And then developers still write code. Deployment should be the easiest part of it. So if you design your architecture in such a way that you're not really coupling the pipelines to the target cloud service providers, then you can handle this complexity in a much more easier way. There are going to be some exceptions for certain workloads which are quite specific to these CSPs, like Lorena mentioned about AI, ML, and cloud. So, for example, if you're tied to that, then some of these DevOps pipelines are going to be quite specific for Google Cloud. So as much as you can, just abstract it out, and then you can choose the targets, and you can flip them anytime you want. And what I'm saying is not just theory. This is something that we do in the bank as well. We got our core banking solution, which is a homegrown in-house solution. And this product, we are running it in AWS, we are running it in Azure, and we also run it in on-premise infrastructure in some of the markets. So essentially, it's a hybrid cloud architecture, because there are markets that Standard Chartered operates where we can't put them onto cloud due to regulatory restrictions or cloud not being available. So we just built the same source code, simple pipeline, standardized, and we can deploy into any of these three targets. So it's not theory, it can be done.
Thanks, Senthil. Dinesh, you want to?
I also just want to add my experience, especially when it comes to the multi-cloud challenges. A few years before, especially one of our project, when I was working in one of our project, that project was completely on one of the vendor, Azure Cloud. That's where exactly we started, we set up everything. I think this is completely a practical discussion from my end, yeah. So what exactly I faced, let me put that one, so that I think that would be a great thing for you for going for the upcoming ones. So what exactly happened? So few of other customers also coming to us and saying that they are very much interested to go for the other cloud vendors. Okay, fine. So our team also started setting up other things. That's where exactly we faced certain challenges. Let me tell you the challenges, what exactly the major things here. The first thing is we were completely dependent upon the cloud-specific services and the DevOps model at the time. So that was the first issue got started with us. That's where, again, teams spent a lot of time to understand what exactly the specific service which we can get from the other cloud vendors, and thus what kind of DevOps model we can set up. These kind of things, again, they need to think about the resilient, high availability, and disaster recovery things as well, right? So all these things we need to keep in our mind when we are going for the other clouds. So that's where we understand, okay, so if we could have set this particular part with a cloud agnostic way, not specific to the very cloud, any specific cloud vendor. If you could have set this one in the cloud agnostic way, that would be the best one. That's where exactly we started setting up different types of DevOps model by using completely some cloud agnostic open source tools. So that's where today our DevOps model is completely comfortable in deploying to any cloud vendor. That's where exactly we just pick it up. So that's the first thing I just want to convey. The second thing got started here is the costing. The costing is another one which we need to keep always in our mind. So whenever we are setting up any type of architecture or the DevOps model in other clouds, we need to always keep in mind the costing. That is very important, really important. I can give an example for that. So when we started migrating our stuff to the AWS cloud and GCPs, there I think since there was a skill gap on exactly the certain team members, that's where exactly they started using some specific and similar services in other cloud. And eventually what exactly happened, all of a sudden we started receiving the huge cost at the end of the month. It will be a big surprise. I don't know whether you will really feel it or not. Definitely you will feel it. Please keep this one in the mind when you're going for other cloud vendors. Yeah, so the costing is another one which we need to keep always. So, and the third one is, as our madam said, I think, which is similar to the skill gap. The skill gap is another one. For example, your team member might be very strong in one cloud, maybe Azure DevOps, or Azure specific services. When someone is asking to go for Alibaba, again, there is a skill gap, which we need to improve by keeping some programs, some training sessions. That's the only way which we can do. So these three are the major things exactly I can highlight from my past experience. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, Dinesh. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to the... Cool. So I guess the next important question is, how do we balance automation with human oversight and control within our CI/CD pipelines, and why is this important?
Maybe I can take this. I'm Linda from GovTech. So when it comes to setting out CI/CD, I think at the minimum what you will commonly see is that the team will set up a pipeline, and then they will add tasks to minimally automate build, deployment, and add maybe tests or scans. And then what I commonly see is that the team will stop there. After they're done with automation, they will move on to their other work. Okay, so while it is great that the team has taken that step to automate what they used to do manually, but they also have to look at how what they have implemented, the pipelines that they have, do they really support their quality and release process? Have they baked in the technical controls? And if there are areas that are not covered by their technical controls, do they have process controls in place to cover those gaps? So maybe let me give some example. Okay, so if you look at your source code repository, you look at your tool chain, can someone directly push code to the source code repository and then be able to deploy to an environment such as production without review or approval? Do you have that kind of control in place? Okay, another example is that who can change your pipeline? And can they easily remove your tests, the scans, so they can bypass the quality gates that you supposedly put in place to guard your environment for unnecessary or unapproved changes? Okay, another example is that pipelines require privileges, secrets to perform the automated tasks. Okay, so how do the pipelines access those secrets? Where are your secret stores and being managed? What kind of permissions do your secrets have? Okay, in some cases I've seen, I think to make it quick, they give permissions very broad permissions. Okay, maybe the pipeline only need to deploy to, or push an image to ECR, but the permission, the IAM role that they have, it can actually do more than just that, maybe even delete the repository. Okay, so I think the point is that CI/CD is not just about automation. Okay, you also need to identify, address the risks that may have been introduced as a result of the automation that you introduce.
I would like
Thanks.
to add, yes.
Lorena?
Thank you, Graeme. Totally agree with you, Linda. It's very good points you raised. I believe actually balancing that automation with the human control oversight is one of the key challenges, right, of DevOps, is one of the key challenges we have. And let's not forget, automation is the cornerstone of DevOps, right? DevOps is all about automate everywhere. But it's also one of the main challenges of DevOps, not fully leveraging automation in an efficient and an effective manner. So how do we balance, how do we strike that sweet spot and that balance? There is no one size fits all. Unfortunately, that approach do not exist today. And we have to, again, depends on our organization's requirements and constraints. What I would say is it is crucial to do this and to get it right because of 3 reasons. Fundamentally, because of quality assurance, because of risk management, and because of compliance management. Because of quality assurance first, because you want to have that human control oversight to make sure the automation is working correctly. You don't want to just automate and let it run, because that could be a disaster, right? And to make sure that the code that you are moving into production, the code that you are deploying, is of a high quality. So quality assurance, super important. The second one, risk management. Risk management in terms of you want to have that human operator and it will enable you to detect bugs, issues, anomalies that, again, automation will not do. And last but not least, compliance management. And if any of you work in a regulated environment, you may know already that regulators are coming and are enforcing it and are telling you, look, automation is important, but make sure you have your human control in place and that human oversight. Otherwise, this is not going to fly, and you need to play in that safe environment. So those are the three areas that I would share, Graeme.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to expand?
Yeah,
Dinesh? No? Okay.
Yeah, I can add a few points here. Yeah, especially, I think, when it comes to the DevOps process, right, always we'll think about everything needs to be automated, 100% automation, right? So that's where exactly we will always run towards. That's absolutely right. I think we need to make sure everything is 100% automated. But at the same time, few things will be there as part of your process, which you cannot keep 100%, which you cannot trust 100% on automation. That's where I can give some examples. For example, today you have one DevOps model. That's where tomorrow your management says, okay, better to go with the security integration as well. That's where DevSecOps will be in the picture. When you integrated the security into the DevOps model, so that particular security integration are not only security, even you can think about the quality assurance, what we just got, right? The quality assurance integration as well, which is a test automation using some different tools, Selenium or APM or whatever the tools, right? Playwright, which is a trendy now. So these kind of integrations when we do, whenever we are moving any kind of product from our development environment to the production, we always need to have some sort of whether these things are what are the results got outcome of these particular stages, right? We need to have a double check, especially on the security thing, especially on that. So we will get some sort of vulnerabilities. We will get some list of vulnerabilities in a centralized location. We need to take a look. Some security expert or security team, we need to collaborate with the security team. That's where the collaboration in the picture. So where the security team will take a look on all kind of vulnerabilities, what exactly the score for each vulnerability. Is it really good to move this one to production with this vulnerability? Hope you all remember some Log4j vulnerability which happened few years before, right? So these kind of things also we can sort out when we implement the shift left approach. That's where exactly we are moving, right? So we need to keep our security things on the left side. So that's where it will definitely help us. At the same time, some manual intervention, especially from the security experts or the security team, is really needed to take a look on those vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities are really causing any issue for our product, for our lovely product in the production, right? We need to think in that prospect. Then definitely we can make 100% a bug-free product in the production. Yeah, this is what exactly I just thought to share. Thanks.
Thanks, Dinesh. Speaking of that, can you all share your experiences with integrating security considerations in an automated CI/CD pipeline? Senthil?
Yeah, sure, I can start. I think pipelines needs to be built for safety because the reason why we have a pipeline is basically to allow software to be deployed safely into production. So when we talk about safety, then you need to worry about everything around safety. When a developer makes change to a source code, we need to make sure that this code is safe to deploy into production. It doesn't have vulnerabilities, or it doesn't have static secrets. It doesn't have things that could have injection attacks, things like that. So you have static code analysis, you got dynamic code analysis. You need all of these safety measures on the pipeline for you to move things onto production. You also have supply chain attacks using libraries which are probably prone to attacks, things like that. So if you do not have any of these on your pipeline, then nobody's going to trust the pipeline because the pipeline cannot move software safely into production. So automating is the easiest part because it basically takes a binary and deploys into a server or a container or runs some scripts on a database. That's probably the easiest stuff on a pipeline that can be done in a few minutes' time. But how do you make sure that your pipeline can be trusted? That is where a lot of effort needs to go in to see what are the controls required and how do we validate those controls automatically as much as we can on the pipeline.
Thank you.
I think I'll just talk from a different angle or more from a human angle. I think from the management head or security heads, we will say that, okay, add the security scans to your pipeline, add more tests, etc. But while it's easy to say you add the scans, the amount of findings that you generate, the potential for false positive can cause fatigue, can require a lot of effort on the part of the development team to resolve. If you want this finding to be addressed, or you want the developers to make the effort to sincerely fix them and not just, superficially fix them or to suppress them, hoping that they don't have to fix, something has to change in the culture. You have to give people time to fix them, and you must motivate them to have to fix it. It could come from the point from different areas. Could be you provide them education to help them understand why they need to fix all these issues. It could be like, for example, you understand that this will impact the timeline, and you give them the time to fix all these issues. So just saying that it's not a matter of just injecting all these controls. You also need to factor in the human angle. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Dinesh?
Yeah, I can add a few points here, especially when we are talking about security in the DevOps. So whenever we are moving our DevOps model towards the DevSecOps, so we need to think about a few things, especially from source code to the production. So each and every stage has its specific security things which we can integrate. Especially on the repositories, you can go with some secret scanning, and you can proceed for SAST, DAST, and IAST, which we are using some Terraform or Terragrant just to provision our infrastructures, right? I think which we need to scan those things as well. So importance, especially the security integration inside DevOps is really important. And when we integrate this one, this is not just like we just integrate it and we just leave the pipeline, let it go. Not like that. We need to assess the results. That is really very important. So when we are assessing the results, that's where exactly our knowledge starts grow. So we need to take a look on the results, and we need to understand, we need to deep dive. So why this is a vulnerable issue? When it is being found against some NVDs or whatever the databases, then you can easily understand by comparing. So really, is it a vulnerable? So this kind of view is really important for a DevOps engineer to just grow further as part of the security. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Cool, thanks. And so just as a more general question here, how do you measure the performance of the pipeline here, the DevOps spectrum? How do we measure that performance, assign people's bonuses to the metric? How do we do this? Senthil?
There are only two measures that are most important when we're delivering software. Number one is speed to market. How fast can we take a business requirement and put it onto production and get the users to actually use it, which is basically the velocity as in how fast you can deliver software. That's number one. And number two is how fast are you resolving the risks and issues in a program or a project. These two are the only measures that can give insight on how healthy is your project. So any other measures of productivity, anything else, the industry has repeatedly failed doing this. So all of these measures and metrics that you generate is not of much use. I think the second one is not relevant from a pipeline perspective, but the first one is, so your pipelines should be, as I mentioned before, it should have the trust. And if it is trusted, then you can move things faster. And you're not going to get this trust on day one. I mean, if you're venturing a new product or a new service, then you got to build this over a period of time. And if you are able to deliver software faster, and the users start using them, that's the only true measure. So I wouldn't worry too much about how much the pipeline itself takes. That's a problem to solve. There are other ways. Maybe we'll talk about it in further questions later. But essentially, you should be able to get your software into the hands of users as soon as you can. That's the most important measure in software industry.
Just to add to what Senthil is saying, because it really resonates with me, Senthil. At Standard Chartered Ventures, our focus is definitely faster release to market, right? How fast we can move to market, and otherwise, all the time that we are investing in our innovative solutions, it will be wasted if our competitors come earlier than us. So that definitely is number one. Totally agree. I would also add the importance of the quality of the software that you deliver, right? Because again, if you are deliver, apologies, my French crap software, that's not going to take you anywhere, right? So that quality again will come from having the right controls in place, having the right, could be manual approval gates, and making sure that software is of high quality, minimize the bugs, minimize the vulnerabilities, minimize the anomalies, so then, it's something reliable.
Cool, thanks. Anyone? Dinesh?
Yeah, I just want to add a few things. I think, when we are measuring the performance for a DevOps model, I think we can consider a few things. Usually, we will set up the pipelines for build process and the release process, right, basically. I think you can consider how long usually this particular process is taking. That one we can consider. And secondly, how fast we can move our changes to production, or that's where the agility, how your pipelines are really supporting to move your changes, or that could be a sprint basis or weekly or monthly basis, how fast you can move to the production. So their pipeline should not be the bottleneck. That's where exactly we should be able to move our requirements to the production very fast. And also, I can say some build failure rate or build success rate also I can talk about. Maybe some cases where your pipelines are keep failing, where it will fall under some failures, we can measure that one as a failure rate. Always your pipeline's failure rate should be as low as possible, and your success rate should be very high. So this, I mean, during your setting up your pipelines, you can consider these things, and you can keep your pipeline very healthy. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks. Yep. Okay. So how do you achieve that optimal balance for your teams to push for innovation and for the teams to have the freedom that they need to innovate while delivering at speed, with speed?
I may take this one, because achieving that balance between innovation and the speed of delivery, the agility is pretty much my daily challenge at Standard Chartered Ventures. But I must say, I believe we have got it quite right. The first thing that we have in place, which I think is fundamental, is that culture of innovation. Having that culture of innovation and that leadership buy-in and cascaded from the top is fundamental, right? To support that experimentation, that innovation, and the teams being able to have the time and the budgets to do that. Now, what I would say is you cannot just have innovation for the sake of innovation, right? That innovation has to lead to something, has to lead to some minimum viable product. Because you can just get into this infinite loop and keep on innovating, keep on running POCs, keep on running prototypes, but that's going nowhere. You want to come to the point that you can move that to production, right? What are we productionizing? So apart from the innovation culture, which obviously is fundamental, is foundational, and is quite cool, you need to have a clear alignment of objectives. And the people on the floor has to be very clear. If, as an example, if the 3 big bets of your organization are, okay, we are gonna start getting ahead in Gen AI, or in blockchain, or in metaverse. So that people on the floor has to be very clear which goals, right? Which are the objectives, which are the strategic priorities, so they are gonna be focusing on AI and they are not gonna be focusing on something else, as an example. So that alignment on goals and objectives is important. And on top of that, you need to motivate your teams. You need to empower the teams. The teams have to have that authority and that decision so they can innovate and do whatever they need to do, right? When you hire people, you must trust them. They are the experts, and you shouldn't micromanage them. And the last thing I would say is, so you empower the teams, but that autonomy has to have some boundaries, autonomy with boundaries, because at the end of the day, you have a budget, you have timelines, and you need to reach to the deliverables, right? So again, if they are just innovating and experimenting and that leads to nothing, there is not gonna be a good outcome. And at the end of the day, you are doing all of this for what? To create that business value. So autonomy with boundaries in terms of budgets, in terms of deadlines, in terms of clearly defined goals aligned with the strategic priorities, and underlining that innovation culture. That's what is working for us.
Thanks. Does anyone want to add? No? No? That's good. Was that a yes or a no?
Yeah. Basically, I think that's where Exito is a little tricky. See, the thing is innovation and feature to production, right? So both are important to balance, actually, both are important. The thing is, if organization goals are very clear for us and the timelines are very clear, then definitely we can allocate some time for the resources where they can do some POCs or some innovations as part of our DevOps process. Definitely these things will help us to move our product to the production in a faster way. So we also need to give some time or some space for the innovation. It's not always like we need to move our product to the production. So innovation is also a very important thing which I can think about. And also, if we really dedicate some time for the innovation, we can bring some tools from the market to our DevOps. That's where exactly will help us to make sure our process is very quality and also faster to the production. Yeah, that's my opinion on this innovation. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Okay, we got 2 more questions and a lot of time, so it's okay. How can containerization help you scale? How can containerization can help you scale? My English is bad.
I'll start. I'll start probably on this one. Given the kind of technology changes and amount of options that somebody has, you will eventually have quite a heterogeneous environment. You will have different types of software languages used, different types of tools used, different databases, different streaming engines, different messaging platforms. You will always end up in a heterogeneous state eventually. You may start with a simple stack, but eventually you'll have a heterogeneous stack. And when you have a heterogeneous stack, it's difficult to standardize pipelines and make deployments easier. And that's where containerization helps you to standardize and scale. So if you start containerizing everything that you build as a software, then your pipelines becomes quite simpler. You don't have to worry about the heterogeneous nature of the software on the pipeline itself. So that's your biggest advantage of containerization. With standardization, then you can scale. A very simple example is any of these big chains like KFC or McDonald's. How do they run like thousands of restaurants in the world? Every restaurant is built in the same way. If you go to their kitchen, it's just the same kitchen across the place. So I think there's a Netflix series on McDonald's. Maybe if you get time, you should watch it, how they built this idea. So it's the exact number of staff. It's where the buns come in, where the meat comes in, where the veggies are there. It's all standardized. And every restaurant in the world, the burger is delivered in the same time consistently. And you can't have chicken wings or something additional on a McDonald's. The menu is also fixed. So when you keep something consistent, then you can scale. And when you have a heterogeneous technology stack, the easiest way to standardize that is containerization.
Cool, thanks. Dinesh?
The containerization, especially, this is really, really important. How I can say, this is nothing but encapsulating your complete code and the dependencies into a single unit, right? That's where it will be helpful for you when you're scaling to the multi-cloud environments. This, without having this kind of containerization technique, it would be a little difficult for you when you're scaling to the multi-cloud as well. I can quote about that. And also, you can think about scaling. So scalability is very easy if you are using some containers, right? You can bring up auto-scaling. You can use some auto-scaling techniques. And followed by orchestration, right? That's where today we are using Kubernetes as the most famous one, which we can use for orchestration, right? That's where these containers are really helpful for us when we are going for orchestration with the Kubernetes. That's where we are using. And the very, very important thing, which is utilizing the resources, which obviously will save you some cost. So that is the ultimate thing for the organizations when you're going for the cloud environments. So resource efficiency is really good if you are going for the containerization because it will use the common kernel, operating system kernel. So that's the best advantage we can think about. So these are all the things I can quote from my end. Yeah, thanks.
Should we move to quick Q&A? We got like 3 minutes, I guess.
No, there's no time pressure here. I mean, we're not running late at all.
Actually, I can add a point about the.
Yep.
So I think just now the points that the gentleman has shared are related to the application. I think you can also look at the angle of the pipeline execution. So I shouldn't say recently, but last year we moved from one platform to the other. The original platform was using shell-based agents or runners. I think some of you all would be very familiar with that. It's very common. And then we moved to a platform that also provides containerized runners. Now, with shell-based runners, you are very, you have the challenges where firstly, whether it's ephemeral, how much can it scale, and what are already installed on the images or on the operating system provided for those runners. But when we move to containerized when you move to a platform that have containerized runners, right, the amount of skill change, the number of containers that can launch is way more than if they have to launch like various EC2s or VMs and whatnot. And the other things is that we are no longer bounded by just the image of the operating system that is provided. Okay, we can also consider different Docker images, which may have the tools that you need to use. So that actually increase the amount of, I would say, the flexibility, the access to various kind of tools and libraries that you can use. Yeah.
Thanks. I've got one more question, but I'm going to, if anyone's got questions they want to ask, the guy right at the very back, which is good. Cool. I'll start moving over there. But if you could talk about any foreseeing DevOps trends you see in the DevOps space. Anyone? No, we got
Right.
Yeah. So good morning, esteemed panelist. In fact, I have 2 questions in case you can help. So my first question is with respect to the cultural aspects of DevOps. So everybody spoke about automation, risk, compliance, security, containerization. But how can we inculcate a DevOps culture, specifically in the day-to-day operations, operating model, people aspect, behavioral aspect, etc.? So if one of the esteemed panelists can answer, that would be really great. That's question number 1. Question number 2. I would be curious to know a real-life example of how performance can be enhanced in a DevOps landscape, in the sense that what could be good practices in planning, or maybe build, or maybe deploy, or maybe release, which can enhance performance. Testing part I know, because testing has specifically performance testing, but in other DevOps lifecycle stages, if one of the panelists can throw some light of couple of practices in planning or build or deploy or any of the other stages other than testing, how performance can be enhanced.
I can take the first one, yes. So in terms of the culture, actually that's a really spot on question. Based on my experience, one of the key challenges in DevOps is underestimating the importance of having that right culture of collaboration and that cultural transformation across. And this is foundational, right? The same that I was sharing before, that in a standard charter ventures, we have that innovation culture. The culture is foundational, has to be set up from the top. If you don't have the leadership buy-in, if the business is not aligned with technology, and they don't understand the benefits of DevOps, and they don't believe that DevOps is gonna bring them faster to market, that DevOps is gonna help us with faster delivery and delivering better things, and hence enhancing the customer experience, which at the end of the day is what we want, right? We are here to serve the customers and to generate value, business value. So if the management and the top don't believe on that and they don't cascade that from the top, there's little that we can do, unfortunately, not trying to be not discouraging, but I find that leadership buy-in key for that culture of collaboration. And then obviously it has to cascade and everybody has to believe that. And especially on the floor, that collaboration between teams and that culture of you build it, you run it, clear accountabilities, clear responsibilities is going to be fundamental.
Well, thank you. Does anyone else wish to answer either of the questions? Cool. To improve the performance of other steps, I'm just going to say, throw more infrastructure at your CI/CD system than you think you're going to need. A lot of the tests can use most memory and CPU available. It does work. And as always, shift things to the left as much as possible. Yeah. Any other? You had a question? Yeah.
Actually, I thought he has a second question about the performance.
Yeah. If you want to add to that, please go ahead.
I'm not sure whether you already answered your question, but when you have a common, let's assuming that your team has or multiple teams have a common platform, what may help to improve, improve the speed at which they develop or implement the pipeline, right, will be things like, for example, if you have like common templates, reference pipeline. So what we have found very useful so far is to do inner sourcing. Okay, so what various teams have already developed in their own project or product, they will actually share as templates, reference pipelines, knowledge base, and they will share with the other teams. And this will mean that the other teams don't have to re-engineer the wheel. Okay, so that's what we have found useful so far. Oh, sorry, you have a...
Okay, so I got the part of the infrastructure, templatization, etc. But what is my question actually is, DevOps talks about doing everything from the beginning and doing everything right from the stage one, or rather I should say the start of the planning part. So testing I understand, infrastructure I understand from performance perspective. My question actually was a real life example when performance is built from the start. When I say start, I am referring to the planning phase, I am referring to the build phase. Infrastructure testing will come a bit later. But since we talk about shifting left everything, how can I shift left performance from planning or performance from build? That kind of insights I was actually looking for. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Deepak. I am from digital.ai.
We don't have much time, so maybe what I will say is capacity planning. Capacity planning is going to be fundamental, aligning with the business to know, what is going to be the loads for the next 3 months, for the next 6 months, and then focus on that capacity planning and start building it small, and that's how you go. But we can take it offline.
Buddy, there's no silver bullet. Let's say you build a F1 car, and I'm a big Ferrari fan. This year, I'm expecting Ferrari to win the F1 championship. But the only way Ferrari can find out if they're fast enough or not is to hit the rubber on the road. Any amount of planning, any amount of prep, any amount of testing before will prove the results completely different if there's another engine and another car which is going faster than them. So don't worry too much about upfront planning and etc. Just get the rubber hit the road, then you can fix it later, buddy.
Thanks.
Hi, myself Nitisha from Keysight Technologies. So I have a question on heterogeneous environment that we have. So basically, let's say like we use containerization concepts for creating images and deploying it. So there are continuous deployments which we'll be doing based on the source code that the developer has changes and we'll be deploying into the productions, right? So then the same time in the areas of like containerizations, we have these maintenance scripts which we will be using for creating container itself. So there might be some changes which is related to such kinds of environments. So there are currently like we have a pipeline which will be like just deploying the image, I mean the VAR or creating images, and the other one is will be like having which is maintaining your containers. So in the such kinds of scenarios, like how Jenkins can be like utilized in a better way. Is there any like better ways of utilizing Jenkins in handling two, like one with a continuous component which are having the continuous changes, one is on like let's say like some release basis changes?
I think you need to isolate the two. You can isolate I think the container configurations are not really related to pipeline, it's how you build your images. That's mostly sitting in your source code. Let's say you have, I mean, ideally your container should not be having any changes specific to different targets. It should work similar. That's the advantage of containers. But your pipeline itself, based on the targets, you could have different configurations. Sometimes you could even have different deployment steps used. Or if you use standardized tools like, for example, Terraform to spin up Infra, then you can even bring consistency across heterogeneous environments. You could use the same pipeline to deploy into on-prem or to, say, AWS, for example. So I segregate the two concerns and don't keep it in the same place.
Time only for one last question.
Yeah, hi. My name is Meenakshi, and thank you so much, all of you panelists, for such a valuable inputs and information. My question is related to, we are talking about the source code and the scanning and security. My question is, when we are not having the source code and not having the in-house development, we are getting the binaries or artifacts from third party. In that case, what should be the security points should be taken care?
I can take it. It's a very interesting question, and it's a big challenge, especially in banks like us, because our business has the habit of shopping, just like how we go and shop ourselves tons and tons of stuff. Our business goes and does shopping and buys third-party products, which we call COTS internally, which is basically commercially off-the-shelf products. When you buy commercially off-the-shelf products, your CI is not with you. Your CI is completely outside. It's being done by the vendor itself. Only thing that you have is CD. Once you get the packages, you can safely move the packages. So if you're going with big industry standard products, then you would see that they have their own pen test reports that they can produce to show evidence that they've done penetration testing on the software. They have performance test reports which they can produce. Usually, big product companies, they have third-party attestations on those which you use to validate. And then you build minimum checks on your pipeline to push things across. So yeah, if you've decided to buy a product from a vendor and you trust them, then you need to upfront agree on what is that the vendor will certify versus what things you want to add on the pipeline. So it's a difficult problem. It's especially with small players, you would not get all those reports that you're looking for. So it's going to be difficult for you to make a decision on how do you push that into production.
Maybe just to add to Senthil very briefly, apologies, Janita, because I find this really helpful, because obviously we are using vendors more and more and more, and obviously the reliance on vendors' products resilience is going to impact us, right? And it's not only third party, it's also fourth party, etc. And something that I've been doing with the Standard Chartered Ventures for the last 3-4 years, when we go through the process of vendor selection, we are quite, I wouldn't say strict, but we ask them to share with us some external certification, some external audit, something that has been performed on them, right? It helps a lot if they come with the ISO 27001. So then you are quite comfortable that the baseline for security control should be in place. If they come with the SOC 2 Type 2, excellent. Then the operationalization of the controls for availability, confidentiality, privacy, security, are going to be there. So always try to get those certifications. Obviously, as Senthil was saying, not everybody may have them, but in this day and age, I can guarantee you 27001, if they don't have it, I wouldn't engage.
Thanks, everybody. I guess we're blinking at me for the last 5 minutes, so I assume time's up.
Thank you to the moderator and the panelists for an amazing session. Requesting the speakers to please stand together so that we can have a group picture.